Hello, and welcome to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway podcast. That's right. Your host and tour guide is Scott Prevett, a healer, hypnotist, and a magician. And your bus driver is Jason Gobelli, also a hypnotist, an entrepreneur, and a spiritual guide. Disclaimer, neither Jason, Scott, or any of our guests here today are licensed professional psychologists or psychiatrists. So please don't make any changes to any medication or treatments that you are currently on based on the conversation that you hear here today. Just hop on the bus and enjoy the ride. Trip with us on the Inner Revelation bus. That's right.
Hey, welcome to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway. It's good to have you back today. We're excited to have you. We got a great guest today. We got Alex William Smith, and it's wonderful to have him, also known as Jonathan Royle. Hey, Alex, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
We are
Welcome.
Yes. So, first question, right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, what's the difference between Alex William Smith and Jonathan Royle? Are they actually two different personalities?
Oh, good question. Well, before I fully answer that, the reason for the different names, although if on Facebook, for example, I have a business page that's in the name Jonathan Royle, because that is my stage name and business name. But my personal profile now says Alex William Smith, which is my birth name, but then in brackets it says Jonathan Royle, because Facebook would allow that. For years, because most people know me as Jonathan Royle, my personal profile was on everything Jonathan Royle. And then somebody who had it in for me, who I won't give the oxygen of publicity, but I know who was behind it, reported to Facebook that my profile was fake. Now, obviously it wasn't because it's me, but they said that it was fake. And under Facebook rules, your profile, if it's a profile, has to be in the name that's on your birth certificate and your passport and whatnot. So I wasn't able to prove, and therefore they shut down that account. So I had to set up another in my birth name, Alex William Smith, although then in brackets it says Jonathan Royle, and set up a Jonathan Royle business page because some vindictive, jealous person whose name I won't even mention. But is there a difference? Well, there was the motivation for it was, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome live on stage Alex Smith. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome live on stage Jonathan Royle. It's about the syllables, Jonathan Royle. It has more impact. So it gets a heightened applause from an audience. It automatically sets them up psychologically. Whether that be for a comedy hypnosis show, a magic show, or a group therapy motivational session or whatever, right from the off, it heightens the expectancy of things. Is there a difference between the two? The me off stage and the me on stage? A bit, probably more so as I've got older, but not massively. Stage wise, I suppose it's just a louder, more animated, amplified version of me. Because if you try to play a character, it's all well and good for an actor who may be trained in those things, but if you try and play a character of somebody you're not naturally, when you're doing things like therapeutic work or psychological entertainment, it will break at some point. You won't be completely congruent. An audience will get that it isn't you, that you're putting on a persona. Whereas if you take yourself and just ratchet up a notch or two so it becomes a bit more animated, a bit more lively, a bit more entertaining, then because at heart is who you truly are, albeit maybe not normally as loud or as animated, people can still sense there is a truth and an honesty in that. Yeah. So yeah, I don't suppose that was a definitive answer to your question, really, but
well, it sounds like you just have a couple of different ego states going on at different times.
Just, I wouldn't say different, just slightly tuned down when off stage. Although that said, I no doubt come across to a lot of people as still highly egotistical and arrogant off stage, as I do on stage. But I believe that is largely because a lot of people don't know the difference because they haven't dealt with their own emotional imbalances. A lot of people don't know the difference or can't recognize the difference between actual confidence and certainty, or arrogance and apparent overconfidence. There's such a fine line between the two that for an outsider who themselves maybe has more uncertainty in more areas of their life than would be ideal, because they have a lacking in perhaps their self-confidence, the self-image, the self-esteem, or the self-control, which if there's any lacking in any one or more of them, it will have a knock-on effect on their levels of self-respect, self-worth, self-love, and positive selfishness. Positive selfishness being looking after themselves, so then they can be the best possible themselves around other people. And if there's any imbalance in any of them, it will ultimately have a knock-on effect on their sense of self, their self-identity, who they truly are. Or as Freud, or sick mind Freud, as I prefer to call him, called it the id, the ID, the id, the self-identity. That's why sometimes people, you hear them talking and they give clues away, like, I felt like something was missing, that's why I turned to this religion. Or I felt like there was a part of me that wasn't right, and that's why I turned to spending more time in the gym. If there's any imbalance there, people will actually react to someone who's got certainty and confidence through the clarity of their experiences in life, and will react to them more often than not and go, whoa, aren't they egotistical and full of themselves? They think they're wonderful. Now, some of the time, the person will be stepping over into the realms of arrogance and ego. However, a lot of the time, it's such a fine feather, such a fine line between the two. And that is why I always say to people, I mean, this sounds like a plug, what I'm about to say, but it isn't. It doesn't matter what arena it's in, whether it's in magic, mentalism, hypnotherapy, stage hypnosis, accountancy, investing on the stock exchange. If you are going to go and learn something from somebody, do not just fall for their advertising hype. Somebody who's got very little experience could put something together, get an excellent sales letter written, an excellent website put together, pay for the best advertising so that it gets directed at you regularly through the algorithms of social media channels, so that you end up becoming brainwashed almost into, wow, I keep seeing this around, it must be good, to the point where you end up buying it because you read this sales blurb and you go, wow, and you buy it. And if you don't know any better, quite often you will be buying crap or distinctly average stuff packaged and sold for way more than it's actually worth. And I'm going to use hypnosis, the hypnosis industry, as an example, and this will, to some, for the reasons I've just explained, sound egotistical and arrogant. But I swear genuinely, sincerely, that I feel it's actually just a case of certainty and confidence, because I've been there, done it, worn out the t-shirt numerous times. And, I always say, including with me, take anything I say over this hour with a pinch of salt until you have independently researched any claims I make yourself and found evidence from multiple different people and multiple different sources that confirm that what I'm saying is true. And obviously, if you do said research and you were to find that there was any inaccuracies in what I'd said, that would be the red flag that tells you, well, hey, don't believe anything else it's saying. Unfortunately, as obvious as that sounds as what you should do, the number of people I hear that spend hundreds, often multiple thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of pounds, dollars, or euros going on for example, an NLP practitioner's course, and then immediately after getting convinced to take the master practitioner course, and immediately after that getting convinced to take the trainer's course, and then getting convinced to go out into the world offering to teach people NLP and take them through this multi-level marketing tunnel. And it happens in the hypnotherapy arena as well. So they end up teaching people when they've never had any real world experience of any notable level, if at all, and they're going out. It's like the blind leading the blind. And then you get more and more people out there, so that the largest percentage of people out there offering courses have frankly achieved very little of real note or worth in the real world with real clients. And in that context, as egotistical, sorry, it was over here, egotistical and arrogant for the spatial anchoring for those that are watching, the egotistical and arrogant, or, well, actually, I'm confusing now on purpose, because over here was confidence and certainty. Over here was and arrogance. But here's the thing, if you bring them both together, what? For some people, that'll cause confusion. And, you know, ironically, what I've just done there is an NLP technique that in itself some people drag out into a day-long course and charge several $100s for. And it has very little fucking use in the real world unless you believe that it does. Unless you, as the practitioner, believe that it does. But if you truly believe that whatever important seeming ritualistic process you're going to do to help your client has a worth and has an outcome that will help that client, and you believe it in every nerve, fiber, tissue, and muscle in your body, so you're congruent, your confidence, your certainty projects that to the person in front of you, then that certainty, some might say arrogance and ego, but certainty and confidence, or maybe it is a blend of them both, will transmit to your client, and ultimately that is what will trigger off the placebo healing process, or give that person enough self-belief to, in that moment, without being consciously aware of it, to effectively get off their ass and just make the changes for themselves that they could have always made for themselves if they just believed in themselves, instead of being hypnotized by the narrative of life that you have to be a victim to those circumstances, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and energies of the past. Do you bollocks? You have choice. It might feel that way, but there are ways, rituals, call them what you will, that you can use to interrupt the pattern interrupt, they would call it in NLP, to disrupt things, to metaphorically delete the negative programs that are running in your personal desktop computer, install new software that can run, and more importantly, install metaphoric antivirus software for the brain, is the way I put it, so that the people can change, whether that be overcoming a habit, addiction, fear, or phobia, eliminating anxiety, panic attacks. It doesn't matter. That any habit, addiction, fear, phobia, or issue, any imbalance of any kind that any human being has, can only exist if there is some sort of imbalance somewhere in their levels of self-confidence, self-image, self-esteem, or self-control. Because if they were all perfectly balanced and at a perfect level, then there would be no imbalance on the next level. So for there to be an imbalance at the deeper level, there must be an imbalance at the first level. On one of them, it may not, for some people, it'll be all of them, but for some, it's only one. It's different for everyone. But if there's an imbalance somewhere in their self-confidence, self-image, self-esteem, or self-control, then there will be an imbalance somewhere in their self-respect, their self-worth, their self-love, and or their positive selfishness, looking after themselves. And if there is any imbalance in one or more of them, which there must be if there's an imbalance in the level before, then it will have a knock-on effect to their sense of self, their self-identity. There will be an imbalance, something will not feel right on a deep and emotional level. There will be that idea of something's missing, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. And then that hole will need to be filled to try and make them feel better, because there's this niggly voice that they may or may not be aware of, but that's driving, going, you're living your life, but there's something missing, something's out of kilter, something's not right. And that will manifest itself. It's like the computer programs trying to make the conscious mind aware that it needs to do something to put things right. So it could manifest as drinking too much, starting to smoke screen for issues, drugs for escapism. It could apparently be a healthy thing, like going to the gym, but becoming obsessively over the top with it to too big an extreme that it could actually then be dangerous to the person. And all it's really meant to be doing, or its motive, is to get you to consciously realize there's something not right here, to then find a solution to delete those negative thoughts, feelings, energies, and emotions, and to put back into balance those things. Because I always believe that the only thing I ever do when I'm doing therapy for people, I'm not stopping them smoking, for example. The moment they put out a cigarette, they're a non-smoker until they light another one. And if they never light another one, then they've remained a non-smoker forever. All I do is help people not to start smoking again. They stop themselves by putting it out. Same with, weight loss. They are the ones who choose to do more exercise and take in less calories. A combination of the two is the only proven long-term sustainable way to lose weight and keep it off. You've got to burn off more calories than you're taking in to lose weight. That's it. It doesn't get any more difficult. Now, yes, there are techniques you can use to help people reduce their cravings to sugary and fatty foods and whatnot. And yes, of course, we use them. But at heart, all I do is give people that motivation and willpower, or appear to give them the motivation and willpower, to continue burning off more calories than they're putting in. Or if they come to me and they're scared of spiders, when they leave, we've just reversed things so that if they think of or see an image of a spider or encounter one, rather than it going through the memory files of the personal desktop computer, finding an image of a spider and immediately going, you feel panicky, you feel scared, start giving off that fight, flight, freeze, shite form response where your muscles tighten, your mouth goes dry and you start to panic. No, all we've done is we've ripped up that filing card or deleted that program from the computer and replaced it with one of the spider with a big clown's nose, Wellington boots on every feet, a silly outfit and ridiculous music in the background. So if they see the image, when it does that instant pattern matching, which is how we're programmed to work, it comes up with humor, something that's funny. And it makes laughter, releases feel-good chemicals in the body, and it also makes you feel calm and relaxed, which makes saliva run into the mouth. It's the direct opposite of the dry mouth tension of fear, because it's at the other end of the scale. And that's all we do. We take someone from one end of the scale to the other end of the scale. We rewire pain and pleasure. So if currently they are getting or appear to be getting more pleasure from, for example, smoking, than the idea of stopping smoking, which at that moment in time might be the idea of doing it might be painful to them because the idea they might have cravings and get more stressed. We've just got to rewire it so that it becomes pleasurable for them to feel proud, confident, happy, calm, and relaxed as the confident, happy, healthy, relaxed non-smoker that they've now become and continue to be. Because I always talk, the moment they step through my consulting room door, I talk as though they've already achieved that they've come for. So I know they're coming to stop smoking, but the moment they come through my door, I always talk to them. Now, in the past, in the past when it used to bother you, when you used to smoke, I'm always used to. In the past, it's always implying, even before I go through that formal ritual of hypnosis, that they've left it behind outside the door. And because of that confidence, certainty, arrogance, ego, combination of them both, doesn't particularly matter, that's projected to them, combined with the fact that the focus of the eyes closed relaxation process I do with them isn't so much actually focused on telling them things like, you no longer need, want, crave, or desire for cigarettes or tobacco, albeit there'll be some suggestions in like that, but mainly because that's what they expect will occur. And if you weren't to do something like that, given that that's their preconceived idea of what a hypnotist does, If you didn't do that, they'd think, this is weird, this isn't what I expected, and it wouldn't fulfill their expectations. But if you give them their stereotyping cliche they expect, you no longer need, want, crave, or desire for cigarettes or tobacco in any way, shape, or form. In fact, each morning when you awaken with an inner warm glow of confidence, a renewed optimism to life, a more positive attitude to get things done. And if anyone should ever offer you one of those nasty cancer sticks, whether it be a cigarette or in rolled tobacco form, it doesn't matter. Whereas in the past you may have once said, yes, please, you now find yourself automatically feeling proud, confident, calm, and relaxed as you say, no, thank you. I'm a non-smoker. Notice how good that feels inside. And yeah, of course, we'll do all that kind of ritual stuff. But what's more important than any of that is that during the eyes closed stuff, I concentrate on helping them build up and positively affirm and reaffirm on a daily basis. So it balances things out, their levels of self-confidence, self-image, self-esteem, and self-control, so that in turn, as they balance those things out, it will balance out their self-worth, self-love, self-respect, and positive selfishness. So in turn, it will repair their sense of self, their sense of self-identity, so it will fill that hole. It will fill that gap that previously was being filled or being alerted that something had to be done through smoking or through drinking or through drugs or whatever. The negative's been replaced with a positive. And the only way that that can last long term, suggestion on its own may stop them smoking, for example. But if you've not dealt with the underlying emotional imbalances that were there that caused that to happen, manifest in the first place, then sooner or later you will get a symptom substitution, because the negative imbalance programs will still be running, and it may manifest as a fear or over anxiety or panic attacks instead. But if you deal with those underlying emotional things, all of them, you don't need to waste time finding out which specific ones it is for that client, because if you cover them all, you're guaranteed to get the right one. And the truth is, I'm into my 4th decade of doing this hypnosis stuff. In my experience, everyone's got, even if it's only a teeny imbalance in one of them, and it's all the other 3 on each level that are really imbalanced, everyone's got at least a teeny knock in all 4 of them. So if you cover them all in the work that you do with the client, then you're guaranteed to help them balance out the things. And you know what? I've probably gone off on one, as I often do, so much that I've forgotten what the original question was.
You know what? It's wonderful. I think you actually called him Sick Man Freud in there for a minute, but you said so much stuff, so much good stuff. So we certainly appreciate that and everything that you went through. But as you were talking about your strategies for this, so does a lot of this come from personal experience? Because I mean, aren't you the bad boy of hypnosis, and didn't you have like a little ride in there going on?
Well, I mean, a long story cut as short as it kind of can be, but anyone who wants to elaborate on this, or more importantly, based on what I said at the beginning, anyone who wants to a starting point for research to either prove that I'm talking bullshit or confirm to themselves that I am telling the truth. Starting point, I put together some links and photographs and whatnot at magicalguru.co.uk. That's magicalguru.co.uk. My career resume is there, and some embarrassing photos. And yes, you're free to have a good laugh at them. A lot of it's from personal experience, because quite a bit of what I teach is either very different than a lot of other people teach, or it's a completely different way of teaching it that speeds things up because of what I learned through first-hand experience. So let me explain. Start at the beginning, strap in, This is going to be a long 2 minutes. It'll probably take 5. I was born on the 13th of August 1975 into a show business family whilst my parents were travelling with Gandhi Circus here in England. My dad was a circus clown, still is, and a fighter eater, a circus yogi, fakir. I said fakir, Fakir. I didn't swear then. One of those people who lies on beds of nails, goes up ladders of daggers and all that kind of stuff. And my mum did a sharpshooting, rope spinning, knife throwing, Wild West cowgirl act. And so I was destined to be a circus performer. Hence, at the age of 3, because it's customary in the circus to get people started, as young as possible. At the age of 3 and a bit, I started performing as Flap the Clown, with a big grey wig and this red nose. And you can see the embarrassing pictures, magicalguru.co.uk. They're on there for your amusement and delight. And that kind of was the trajectory of my life. I would, if I followed as most people born on the circus do, I would have still been in the circus now. However, unlike most of the people born on the circus, my mum did not have a show business background until such times as she married my dad. So she wanted me to have a more normal, and I am doing that speech marks in the air thing because what the hell's normal? Just a perceptual construct. But she wanted me to have what she perceived as to be a more normal lifestyle and upbringing, which would mean not traveling around, not going to a different school every week in a different town, and not living in a trailer or a caravan. It would mean getting a house, going to one school, and then only doing shows with my dad in the evenings when the circus was near enough by, or at weekends, school holidays and whatnot. I mean, how that's exactly normal, fuck knows, excuse the language, because I'd still be doing shows, but hey up. So by the time I was about six and a half, thereabouts, my mum had got us a house in a place called Ainsworth, and my dad continued traveling with the circus, and I just went at school holidays, weekends, or evenings if they were really close by, and still performed as Flap the Clown. Indeed, 1981, at the age of 6, the Daily Mirror, one of Britain's leading national daily newspapers, ran an article, Alex the Circus 6, SIX, hit, and a picture of me in the clown's gear. That's when the problem started, because the teachers at the normal school where I was going to permanently, because I wasn't traveling from town to town, quickly discovered that on a pro rata basis, I was earning more money than them per hour. Now, obviously, I wasn't doing more hours than them or even the same number of hours. So it was fudged logic. But suddenly, the moment the article went in, from that moment on, those teachers made my life a living hell. I was persecuted. They took the mickey out of me. They victimized me. And I begged my mum literally that I wanted to go to a different school. The trouble was there wasn't another school for several miles. And at the time, the public transport system wasn't particularly very good in the area. My mum didn't have her own vehicle at the time. So it took a couple of years of hell, frankly, until, and the negative effects that had compounded, until I thought finally I escaped from it, and we did move to a place called Haywood, about 10 miles away, 10, 12 miles away, something like that. I went to a different school. And yeah, immediately, boom, no more persecution from the teachers, no more bullying from the teachers. Everything seemed to be so much better until I appeared in the media again. And then the kids, the pupils, not all of them, okay, but just some of them saw this, and whether they were jealous of the attention I was getting, or it was that fear of the unknown. Look at him, he's from a circus family, he's a gypsy, because that's how you get labelled. Although, ironically, I am from gypsy heritage, it turns out, in my family tree. But I started getting bullied and name called and whatnot by the kids. Now, there's that saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And that's the biggest single piece of bullshit on the planet. It's like death by 1,000 paper cups, snip, snip, it's Chinese water torture. You know, you can't tell because it's so short now. I keep it short on purpose, but I've got, as you can see on magicalguru.co.uk, in some of the old pictures of me when I was younger, I've got practically bright orange ginger hair, naturally. Okay. Another target for bullying. I've got an hearing aid in here, but it's not may or may not be fully visible there. There we go. For reasons that will become clear in a minute, I've got that. Because I got at the age of 4 on the circus, I was playing hide and seek and I hid under one of the trailers, one of the caravans, and it was the Lion Tamers caravan, and unbeknownst to me, chained up underneath was a puma, wild cat. And it was somewhat surprised to see me crawling underneath and started. And my ear got ripped off. I've got scar marks down my back where it clawed me, scar marks on my head. My ear had to be reattached. Yeah, that was my first near-death experience of numerous. Just a random one before I go back to the school. I know I've gone off on one, but all of these things did lead up to where I am today and my outlook on life. Again, around the age of 4 or 5, I'm doing shows on the circus, and traveling with us were performing chimpanzees. And people who are in America, if you go on YouTube and Google, no, not Google, you go on YouTube and type in the search box, P for Polly, G for green, PG tips, T advert chimpanzees, you'll see these adverts they ran in the 70s and 80s. And even into the early 90s in England, where these chimpanzees would dress up as human beings and they dubbed voices over, and they did these comedy adverts for this brand of tea. And these chimpanzees were touring with Gandhi's circus. And I'd be walking with my dad to what they call the ring doors, or if we were in a theatre, to what they call the wings, the side of the stage, to get ready for our next performance bit while there was an act on in the ring. And the chimps that had just finished their bit before the act that was in the ring had gone in, were going back to their dressing room. So our paths would cross. And every day, twice a day, 2 shows a day, 6 days a week, at that very moment, the very second our paths cross, my dad would always turn to Billy Dash, the chimpanzee trainer, and go, "Hey, Billy." And Billy would turn to my dad and go, "Hey, Tizzy," because his clown named Tizzy the Clown, and I was Flap the Clown, because you get in a Tizzy and in a Flap. And in that very moment, that very second, that very instant, whichever one of the chimps was nearest to me had whacked me around the side of the head. And apparently I used to go, "Sonny, again, Dad, they've hit me," and cry, as you would do. Now, I found out in later years that if the chimp actually wanted to hurt me, it could have knocked me unconscious to that strong. So it was just playing, and probably because I was only 4, I was probably about its height. But hey, these things all contributed towards kind of amplifying, I suppose, when I did end up getting bullied on a daily basis, but mainly verbally to start with. From the kids, that it amplified the idea that, you know what, they're actually right. I am the odd one out. I am the weirdo. And when you start giving yourself that negative self-talk and confirming the negative shit you're getting from outside, it just amplifies everything negatively. To the point where just before I started at what you in America, I believe, would call high school, we call secondary school, where the biggest school you go to when you're around 11, 12 years of age. Just before I was due to start there, things had got so bad, and clearly the impact on my self-confidence, self-image, self-esteem, self-control, and therefore the impact it had on my self-worth, self-love, self-respect, and positive selfishness, and therefore the impact it had on my self-identity, sense of self, and the negative impact it had on making it feel like something was missing, had grown such that I just wanted it to end. And one day, it was fall time. I believe you call it in the States, winter. In England, we call it, where it gets darker quicker in the evenings. And one day I went to the busiest main road in Haywood, which happened to ironically be where the school was on that road, Queen's Park Road. And I figured if I lay down in that road, without being too graphic about it, I figured the traffic wouldn't see me and it'd be all over and done with pretty damn quick. So I waited for a gap, and suddenly there was a gap. I went and lay down in the road, and then it seemed like forever. And this was weird because this had non-stop traffic, day or night. This road had non-stop traffic, but it seemed like forever. Now, with hindsight, I realise now in later years that time's a construct, because it's a perceptual thing. I honestly don't know how long I was there. I didn't look at my watch when I lay down. I didn't look at my watch when I stood up. And, you know, since I've met, you can bump into somebody you've not seen for years and go, hey, let's go and grab a coffee in Starbucks or Costa or whatever. And you go and have a coffee and you're talking away and you think you've been talking for maybe 10 minutes. Then you catch sight of your watch and you realize, wow, we've been here an hour or longer. It's just gone like that. And conversely, you can, for example, go for a job interview or an appraisal with your boss, go in and then walk out of the office, and it's felt like you've been in there for half an hour or an hour, but when you look at your watch, it was less than 10 minutes. It's all about perception. So I honestly don't know how long I was lay on that road. All I know is it got to the point where I thought, well, this is a waste of time. Nothing's happening. So I stood up, started making my way back to the pavement. Sorry, sidewalk for the American audience. And the moment my first foot touched onto the sidewalk, I heard this massive whoosh, and I felt this massive backdraft, and I turned my head and saw a massive articulated lorry had whirled past, followed by vans, followed by cars, and it was the Queen's Park Road I'd always known it to be. And in that moment, I shit myself on all levels, metaphorically, emotionally, psychologically, frigging lot. It was a massive, massive wake-up call. And I thought, this must be for a reason. And I don't mean anything religious, because thank God I'm an atheist. You know, I don't believe in a magic man. Sorry if that offends anyone. I believe that God was in the Bible is a misspelling. There's an O missing. It's just a case of good or bad. And that heaven and hell are created in here, in our own minds, our perspective. In fact, the clues are in the Bible. It says, you know, it's like a code book, like the powers that be don't want you to know the truth. You know, it says in there, his divine power gave us everything we need for life. The Lord's Prayer itself tells you it's about hypnosis, it's about positive suggestion. It says, our Father who art in heaven, heaven's created here in your brain. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come on earth, in the external world, it will be done as it is in heaven, which is just a different way of saying what the mind of man or woman can perceive and believe rather, it can achieve. It has to be a thought first, as Einstein said, to become an external reality. Everything is created positively or negatively here within. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that at that time when I tried to end it all. So I was still alive, but I was still getting bullied, and I started at secondary school, and then it started becoming physical bullying. Because there were new people from other schools there, I was even more of the odd one out. And the daily ritual became that the bully would find me at break time, pin me against the wall, give me a load of verbal abuse and insults, and then their entourage, their crowd, would be laughing at this. And then they'd hit me and let go of me and walk off with their crowd. And well, you can imagine this made things worse. But what I'd stumbled upon, call it synchronicity, timing, things happening at the right time or whatnot, is that because I put it down that the grief I'd got was because I was doing the circus clowning. I blamed everything on that. So by the time I was about 10 or 11, I had refused and stopped doing any shows as a clown, because I thought if I didn't put the clown's makeup on, that I wouldn't get bullied. And what I was doing instead, because I needed to fulfill that gap in me that I spoke about, I needed that love and appreciation, feeling loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued, which are other things I didn't mention before, but every human being needs to feel them on a balanced level, otherwise it will have a knock-on effect on those other things that I spoke about. was I was getting that from an audience clapping at the right times or laughing at the right time. So I couldn't stop performing completely. So what I did is I started doing magic shows, because up until then my hobby had been magic tricks and stuff. So that's where I was getting that input. And because I was so advanced in my magic skills, the books in the children's library I was way beyond them without wishing to sound egotistical and arrogant. So my mum got permission from the librarian, after I showed her a few tricks to prove my skill, to be able to take books out of the adult library on a child's library card. So I was taking books out the sports and pastimes section, which is in the Dewey book decibel numbering system where the magic books were. And one day, and I'm at high school, one day I noticed in the corner of my eye that to the right of where the sports and pastimes books were, was a section that said self-help and popular psychology. And I saw the spine of a book, and that book's name was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And in that moment, I thought, this is literally a sign, because if I could influence people and turn them into friends, then they wouldn't be bullying me, and the hell would be over and everything would be sorted out. Well, spoiler alert, as good as that book is for adults to use in a common sense manner with other adults, for an 11, 12-year-old to try using the techniques on other 11, 12-year-olds, actually it made things fucking worse. It's the truth of the matter. However, it had introduced me to the sports and pastime section of the library. Sorry, the bit next to it, the self-help and popular psychology. And the next time I was there, I saw a book called The Power of Auto-Suggestion by Emile Coué, Frenchman. Emile, E-M-I-L-E, Coué, C-O-U-E, most famous perhaps for his positive self-affirmational phrase of day by day, in every way, I am getting and feeling better and better. Which is where, the foundation of the law of attraction, The Secret, and all those things that have been bastardized for commercial gain kind of have their roots is in the proven worth and work of Emile Coué and the power of autosuggestion. Well, in this book, there were a few things I learned. I learned the law of reversed effort. What resists persists. The fact that you get more of what you focus on in life. I also call it the Yoda principle, like in the Star Wars film where Yoda, I can't do impressions, but where Yoda goes, do or do not, there is no try. The idea that, like a stage hypnotist says, imagine your hands are locked together. Now try to separate them, because that word try implies there's a possibility you won't be able to do. And because of the subtle way it's been delivered, that suggestion can take root and become a reality. I learned that. I also learned in there about pattern interrupts, although there was different terminology used for it, but now they call it pattern interrupts. The idea of interrupting somebody's natural train of thought, their natural pattern, so that it causes sensory overload, disorientation and confusion, which arguably puts them in that freeze state, that rabbit in the headlight state of fight, flight and freeze. It's that, should I run? Should I fight? Oh, it's too late because you're caught in the headlights. And in that moment, the critical faculty, the analytical area, or the executive function, as psychologists call it, the kind of nightclub doorman of the mind that stops random shit getting in and random stuff getting out, goes, I can't handle this, and fucks off for a coffee break. So any suggestions or commands or instructions given at that moment meet no resistance and go straight into the personal neck-top computer. That was another thing I learned in there. And I must have had a natural aptitude for this, or divine intervention, because Einstein talked about universal consciousness and all ideas coming from a universal source. But I woke up one morning and I thought, you know what? I have nothing to lose. So I went to school. And when it came to break time and the bully approached me, the normal pattern, pattern interrupt, to explain for people who might not know, it's the idea that, say, a good example is that if someone walks up to you and puts the hand out like that and goes, hey, hi, you will naturally bring out your hand. They connect, and before you know it, you're shaking hands. Not in all cultures, some places in the world that isn't acceptable, but generally speaking, handshake, hi, how are you doing? That is the standard pattern. So if I put my hand out and go hi, and you come forward, but rather than connecting and going hi, I suddenly then grab your wrist, turn it, bring your hand towards your face at an even pace as I go, and just stare at your hand. As your hand comes towards your eyes, it serves as a sign and a signal for your eyes to close down. You have your head to fall forward onto your chest and you instantly, and I can use that to totally interrupt the pattern of your normal thought, to cause that confusion and disorientation, that sensory overload, where the critical faculty, analytical area, executive function, nightclub dormant of the mind, fucks off for a coffee break. So that gives me that opportunity to go and let your eyes close down, sleep, to get you into the transitional sleep state. Now, there's loads of people who say hypnosis has got nothing to do with sleep. Those people are wrong. What they are doing then is not hypnosis, because hypnosis has everything to do with sleep for a few reasons. Okay, number one, because it comes from the Greek word hypnos, meaning sleep. But I hear you say that's what everyone says, but then they explain why it isn't like sleep. Well, it isn't like sleep, as in sleep. It's the transitional sleep period. It's that state when you close your eyes, the bit between closing your eyes and yawning, and then being asleep. The transition between the two is called, when you're going to sleep, the hypnagogic state, because you're going to sleep. In the morning, when you've come out of that sleep, just before you open your eyes and you're still not fully with it, that's the hypnopompic state. Or we can label them both as transitional sleep state. It's that period between full consciousness and sleep, the bit in between. So you can still hear what's going on, you're still aware. That is what hypnosis is. Now, many people would disagree with me and say, well, you don't need that state anyway to get people to react to suggestions. And that's true, you don't. And suggestion itself, also correctly expressed, is hypnosis. But if we're pedantic about things, that is what hypnosis is, because that is what the person who created the word hypnosis intended it to mean. And surely the inventor of the word attributed to it the meaning. Shouldn't we respect what their creation was? And to set the record straight, that was not James Braid in 1845, 1846 time, when he published a book and referred to it as hypnosis. No, it was a good 25 to 26 years earlier, in 1820, when a Baron Felix de Henning de Cuvillers in France published a book that included the word hypnosis and other HYP words that he coined to describe these different states. And he went into detail that it was the transitional sleep state that he was labeling when it was used in conjunction with verbal, non-verbal, indeed any other form of suggestion. So according to him, the true creator of the word hypnosis is the transitional sleep state combined with verbal, non-verbal, and any other form of suggestion, because that could be physical as well. Anyway, in any event, this, I promise you, Jason, nearly there. I put these together, and at school that day, the bully came towards me. And before they could connect to my neck, I just went, why fucking waste time with your silly insults and stuff? Why don't you just try and fucking hit me now? Go on, try, do it now. And they came to the point where they just kind of connected with my neck, but it didn't have the pressure or the intensity previously. And I saw their eyes start to glaze over as I'm going, come on, effing try. Go on, do it now. Why are you not doing it? And I could see their eyes glazing over, and I thought, I'd never seen this before, but I thought, something's happening. This must be that confusion and disorientation that was spoken about. And then suddenly, because they must have experienced sensory overload that was uncomfortable, that they couldn't explain to themselves, they let go of me. They turned to their entourage and they said, fellas, follow me. And as they walked off, they turned towards me and said, don't you effing come near me ever again. Believe me, I never did. I never wanted to. Well, that was the day that the bullying stopped. And I realized that just as words can be weapons that wound, they can also be very healing and arguably very miraculous with what can be achieved. And so Then I went on a quest to learn everything I possibly could. And again, synchronicity. At the age of 13, I saw in a British publication called The Exchange of Mar. It was a magazine that you got in the newsagents, and they had different coloured pages. The green section was gardening supplies. The red section was home and house furnishings, I think. The blue section was business opportunities. And I was looking through the business opportunities section, and I saw an advert, and it said, train to become a diploma-bearing clinical hypnotherapist and wow the crowds and earn fame and fortune as a comedy stage hypnotist. And I thought, whoa, stage is making people do daft things, but that's performing, so an audience will clap and laugh. That will give me that feeling of being loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished, and valued that I yearn for. But if I learn the clinical hypnotherapy, I can actually repair those imbalances that I was starting to learn about in myself. So I won't need the audience's thing, but I'll still enjoy it. So I can also earn from 2 income sources. So I took this course with the Association of Professional Hypnotherapists and Parapsychologists, it was called then, that was set up in the early 1980s by Dr. Brian Howard, who's sadly no longer with us, from Warrington in England. And essentially, in 1989, aged 14, I took the exam. I passed it. I'd lied about my age, by the way, because I knew they probably wouldn't allow an under 18 to take the course. It was a correspondence course. I passed it, but once I'd passed it, I then contacted Dr. Brian Howard and said, I've got to come clean. I'm not 18. Needless to say, he was a bit angry at first, but then he did admit that, yeah, you're right, I wouldn't have accepted your application if I'd have known you were only 13 when you started it and 14 now. He said, but at the end of the day, you did the same exam as everybody else. You got an exceptional mark, and he issued me a new diploma with my correct date of birth on it, and I became the youngest ever member of the APHP. Continued my relationship with Dr. Brian Howard right up until he passed away a few years ago. But earlier than that, I did a kind of Victor Kiam, the razor shaver company guy. I was so impressed by the training course and how it helped me to repair my own state of mind and help other people as well, that I ended up buying the rights to the APHP off him and changed the name slightly in the mid-90s to the Association of Professional Hypnotherapists and Psychotherapists, which is one of the organizations that people get membership to when they join my elite hypnotherapy bootcamp at ultimatehypnosiscourse.com. So that's the journey that led me into all this, to solve my own problems, which ironically is something else that Sick Mind Fraud said. Most therapists are merely searching answers to their own problems. Unfortunately, a whole bunch of them still haven't found those answers, and that, and blatant plug time. But if they went and bought this book, Shitnosis, helping you get over the shit in your life and get your shit together, incorporating the fuck that system, fully unconscious conditioning, knowledge therapy, honoring absolute transformation, then between the written words and these things, QR codes that take them to a virtual online interactive videos, they'd be able to overcome any habits, addictions, fears or phobias, any panic attacks, any anxiety, any imposter syndrome, but more importantly, what this book focuses on is helping people to balance out their self-confidence, self-image, self-esteem, self-control. So it balances out their self-worth, self-respect, self-love and positive selfishness, so that it repairs their sense of self and fills that gap, so that they feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued. Remember, those are feelings. Feelings are different for everyone. It doesn't mean you have to have loads of people in your life. Even a loner can feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued if they create the correct state of mind. It's all about a perception. It's the difference between creating heaven or hell in the reality of your own mind, outlook, perspective, and experience of the world. And that's what this book is all about. And there's no upsells in it. It's literally $17 or £15 on Amazon, and there's nothing else. It doesn't try and make you buy anything else unless you want to become a diploma-bearing clinical hypnotherapist, or you want to become an experienced, safe comedy stage hypnotist, or both. then yes, it'll say go and check out ultimatehypnosiscourse.com for the best training on the planet, and the only training that comes with a full 1 year, 100% satisfaction money back guarantee. That is my way of going, yes, I know I sound egotistical and arrogant. Sorry, that's over here. But honestly, it is just certainty and confidence from my experience that's come together and blended and makes it almost impossible to divide. It's because I know if you do what I teach you in the way I teach you, with honest intent to help people or entertain them, that you will earn more money and get more successful results, whatever your prior experience and training, once you've joined my boot camp, than any other course you could take anywhere, anytime with anybody else, or your bloody money back. I actually guarantee you'll earn at least £12,000 sterling, 12,000 euros, or 12,000 United States dollars more bottom line profit after expenses the 12 months from joining the boot camp than you did in the previous 12 months, or your money back. And also, it's way cheaper than anything else out there on the market, because I am fed up of the people out there who haven't solved their own problems, haven't dealt with their own issues, haven't treated more than a handful of therapy clients, and because they couldn't make it financially paid, they've had to start training people to bring in other income streams. I'm fed up of these people being the blind leading the blind, telling people that, you know, you can't make people say or do things against their moral codes or values with hypnosis. Bullshit, in which case you don't know how to use hypnosis properly. If you know how to use hypnosis properly, you can get anyone to do anything. MK Ultra is real. I cover it in my documentary, Extreme Danger, Extreme Hypnosis, subtitled It's Time for the Sleepwalking Zombies to Wake Up, which used to be on sale, but you can now watch it free, no cost whatsoever, by simply going to YouTube, searching for my Celebrity Hypnotist YouTube channel, clicking on playlists, and then clicking on the playlist called Extreme Danger, Extreme Hypnosis, where you can watch it at no charge whatsoever. Because it's my motivation and my desire for people to wake up to the fact that they're being hypnotized every day of their life, from birth to the moment they die, from religion, from the media, from politics, from every angle of their life. Because once you're aware of that and you can see it happening, you can start to take control for yourself. And when you start to take control for yourself and stop believing these negative messages that are coming in from all sources, which are purposely negative to imbalance you, to cause you confusion and disorientation, to cause you stress, anxiety, depression and fear, so that you cannot achieve your full potential. Because the powers that be don't want a world full of people achieving their full potential, because then they'd ask too many questions. But when you wake up to these things, you'll be able to realize that, you know what, the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence, so to speak. What you see on social media, people with the perfect lives, it isn't. They spent time to airbrush use apps to make the photos look better. They're showing you the best case scenario of themselves. They're just not showing you the negatives. Stop competing with other people. Just compete with you, yourself, to be the best possible version of you on a daily basis. So that, as Emile Coué said, kind of circularly going back to where this narrative started, that day by day, in every way, you can feel and become better and better in every area of your life.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Man, you covered a lot for us today. We certainly appreciate that. But I have one more question for you.
Okay.
It's that when you're doing your stage shows, your magician shows, your magic, your comedy, and all this other stuff, do you inject that healing in your show where you help other people, and how?
I didn't used to. There used to be very distinct things, or at least I didn't consciously do so. Okay. Now, with hindsight, I was to some degree, because healing, laughter itself is so wonderfully healing. It releases endorphins, feel-good chemicals into the body. A great example of this is the film Patch Adams, with Robin Williams playing Dr. Patch Adams in the children's hospital, kids with terminal illnesses told they've only got weeks to live. He goes in doing silly stuff, making them laugh, and it reduces their pain levels without the need for additional chemical anesthetics, and it also gives them a longer life. But but not one where they're living it out in pain, one where they're actually able to have some joy and happiness from it. So, you know, laughter is, as they say, the best medicine. Unless you're diabetic, then insulin quite often works better. But in more recent years, yeah, I have taken the psychology, and I know, knowing that laughter can be healing, but also knowing that just, you know, rather than just revealing that somebody has chosen a card with a certain word on, for magician friends listening or watching to this, and if you're not a magician, don't worry, just Google my fellow therapist, Evoke, E-V-O-K-E, Evoke, by Craig Petty, good friend of mine. He's a magician and magic creator who has developed a set of cards, and the trick's called Evoke, E-V-O-K-E. It'll cost you about $40 for the set, but it comes with hours of training videos. And if you once you've got them, you can join the Facebook group for Evoke owners, and in there, if you search me, Alex William Smith, you'll see I've put a training video of how to use these, to actually use them as a tool for therapeutic treatment with people, because they've got different emotional states, positive and negative, written on them, but they're mark cards, they've got other magical principles in them, so you know what card the person's got before them, or you can force a positive one on them if they're feeling down, and through the use of verbal suggestion and stuff, make them feel better. Or, you know, there's so many things you can do with them that, yeah, that is a great, that's just come out in the past week. And that's the epitome of combining what I knew with what's out there. But I was starting to do it anyway, because I was starting to do things like what they call the abnormal lift. It's an old trick where you have somebody sit on a chair and you get your hands like that, and 4 people try and lift them and they can't because they're too heavy. And then in the old version, you used to push down on the head, and then afterwards everyone could lift them up. I then stopped pushing down on the head because I realized that was muscle constriction that briefly gave you a bit more strength. And I just used the power of suggestion to demonstrate that positive emotions and feeling confident made them more able to lift than if they thought about a bad time in their life when they then became weak and couldn't lift. So yeah, over the years, combining suggestion, emotion, and the psychology behind it all with entertainment, with the intent of helping people feel empowered in their life or to heal themselves, yeah, it's become more, it just kind of naturally happened. I didn't set out to do it, but yeah, it's becoming more and more, where it is something now that I do kind of, when I'm putting new things together, presentations, I try and inbuild a message that will actually make it a truly moving experience for people. Not just something that's entertaining, but something where they feel like, yeah, that actually made me truly feel something.
Nice. Nice. Wonderful. Wonderful. We've definitely enjoyed having you here. Scott, if you have anything you want.
Thank you.
What's next, Alex? What's next for you?
Oh, good question to end with. What is next? What I would hope is next, and I haven't really gone into this, but anyone who wants to know more can go to the website circusofthemind.net. That's circusofthemind.net, where I fully explain with facts, evidence, dates, times, and the information you can then use to go away and independently research for yourself, so you can come to your own conclusions. The background to how I, in 1998, attempted to expose what I thought were just dishonest and unethical techniques of Rupert Murdoch, the media mogul's journalist, the Fake Shake, the infamous Fake Shake. If you go on Amazon Prime, there's a 3-part documentary, Fake Shake Exposed. Yeah. However, there's that only scrapes the surface. That only scrapes the surface. Ironically, in the past 3 or 4 years, I've discovered that the reason that backfired when I tried to expose him in 1998 and landed me briefly in prison, which is all explained at circusofthemind.net, is because he was actually using things like illegal phone hacking, illegal private investigators. He'd drugged my drinks with a GHB style date rape drug to make me more manipulable and easily influenced. He was fabricating false evidence. He was routinely lying under oath in court, committing perjury. These were things I wasn't aware of at the time. Had I been, I think it's highly likely I would never have tried to expose him. I'd have realised I was biting off more than I could chew at the age of 22. It's little wonder discovering that when they realised, because they were 20 steps ahead of me, I thought I was, because I'd set up the situation, was in control. No, they knew that I knew who he was. They knew what my intentions were. So they made sure that I got stitched up like a kipper so that I could never reveal that what I thought were just dishonest and unethical techniques of lying a bit. As it turned out, there was so much more going on, and levels of illegality I've only discovered in the past couple of years, like over a quarter of a century later, that I was taking on a power I was never going to win because I didn't know what was going on. However, I have a court date for January 2025, unless they settle out of court before, which they may well do, where my case against News Group newspapers, Rupert Murdoch's media empire, for getting me imprisoned based on lies and fabricated nonsense, is going to be decided by a judge. That finally I will hopefully get my name vindicated and cleared and prove to another level. I mean, there's loads of proof on circusofthemind.net that what I've been saying since 1998 is unquestionably true. But this will be the icing on the cake to prove it to those people that slag me off on the internet and go, he's a criminal, you know. No, it's not as simple as that. Look at everything at circusofthemind.net. So hopefully the next chapter will be that people will say, wow, he was always telling the truth. And wow, bloody hell, he didn't completely lose it where many people would have given up. I nearly did a few times, but fortunately my wife, such a wonderful support, and said, no, don't give up. And also I used the self-help techniques to help with resilience and whatnot. So when that's occurred, then I think the next chapter will probably be putting together a presentation, both for the general public and also the corporate arena, where I can go in and go, look, I ended up in jail. My life was apparently over. I was branded as a criminal. And yet none of that was true. But I was the only person who knew the truth. And it took me, by January next year, it took me nearly 28 years of my life to fight back, to clear my name, to be here, to be able to say to you, you know what? Nothing is impossible when you program your mind correctly. So I think that would be the next chapter.
That's right. Hey, well, I want to let you know we don't think we are a criminal. We love you, and we're glad to have you on the show. We certainly appreciate it. And
thank you very much indeed, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Keep in touch.
Pleasure is all ours. And for the viewers out there, we hope you've enjoyed the show. If you like us, give us a thumbs up. If you think we're assholes, hey, just give us a thumbs down. We ask that you comment, that you share it with others. Say, hey, check out these guys. Check out the good stuff they're doing, or check out these fools. We don't care. Just follow us. Come back and share it with others. And once again, Alex William Smith, it's been a pleasure driving down your magical psyche highway today. So, great show, guys. We hope to see you next week. Thanks for coming.
Wow, what a trip. Thanks for taking that journey with us today. Please like us, share us, and enlighten us with your views of the topics we drove into today. We appreciate you and love reading your comments. Thanks again, and we hope to see you back on the bus next week. That's right.